think it has gone astray. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up. But you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start the old nation with myself from reservation. I'm gonna start the old nation with myself from reservation.
Keep the red flag flying here.
And we will keep the red flag flying here on Political Unmuted. We're back after the summer holidays with a good deal of illness and feeling under the weather about, but nevertheless, we bring you socialist hope. That's our aim. And welcome back to all those of you who are listening live. Don't forget to make comments in the chat and certainly on the podcast. Hi, it's lovely to see you all. I've got lined up a fabulous team to answer the three questions that we're going to address today, and including a new person. Hello, Ian Hudson.
How you doing, John? You all right, mate?
Absolutely fine. Just tell us something about yourself, Ian, so because you're new to our listeners.
I'm the national president of the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union. Our union was obviously involved in McStrike and the Spoon Strike. And, you know, one of our most recent successes was to be, you know, the first union to force a global corporation called McDonald's to sign a legal agreement saying that they will deal with sexual harassment in an appropriate manner now, which obviously protects all those workers in McDonald's. So, you know, it's a landmark globally, you know, and for our little union, you know, it's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's absolutely crucial, because it was in the news recently, wasn't it, about the horrors that were going on there. Thank you for joining us. We're deeply on. I'm always terrified when we get important people on, because anyway, it's lovely to see you. Kerry, lovely to see you. Are you okay?
I am, John, and I am not an important person, like. Ian's more important than me, John, are we?
You're like me. We're oiks together. How did your holidays go?
Really good. Glad to get the kids back to school, as every parent in the country was. Yeah, really good. It doesn't seem 2 minutes ago that we were actually here, though, does it?
No. Well, people have been asking when we're coming back, so it's good. It's nice when that happens. Neil, lovely to see you as well. Hiya.
Hi, John. You all right?
I'm absolutely fine. How are you? Any personal news that you want to just share with people at the moment?
Not that I can really think of. No, not that I know of. No, not that I can think of anyway.
You're busy going around the country chasing Nigel, aren't you, at the moment? Nigel.
Yeah, tomorrow there's a steam locomotive going up to Carlisle called Sir Nigel Gresley, which looks very similar to that, apart from it hasn't got this bit on it. But apart from that, it's the same. So that's just for Kirsty, by the way. I know how she likes that model. So I'm chasing that tomorrow up and down south to Carlisle for a bit of fun in this lovely weather that we're going to be having tomorrow.
Well, God bless you, and all the very best with your trains. Now we're going to move on. Right, I've got Laura Daly. Ian is a legend, sort of, which terrifies me even more. Hi, everybody. Remember, feel free to share your moment of the week on the chat, and I'll see if I can catch them and share them with everybody. But moment of the week is where we ask our guests, is there something which struck you, which we're not talking about, but needs a mention? Ian, moment of your week.
One of the things probably not been on the mainstream television, but it should have been, was the announcement by the president of Brazil calling for the freedom of Julian Assange. I think that's a really important person, and to say it at the United Nations, I think is an incredible moment, and I think we all want to see Julian Assange freed, because all his crime is actually exposing the truth about how countries take us into wars. So well done to the president of Brazil.
Yes, thank you. One of the big scandals of the century, that what's happened to that man. But you were chatting before. I mean, you've been to two absolutely amazing events that you were talking to Neil about, and just had my mouth hanging open. Tell us, one was the Diggers, and the other one
Diggers,
was Peace. Tell us briefly about those two things.
So I went to the Wigan Diggers, which is an amazing festival. It's the biggest socialist festival in the country, I think. It's run every year. This year was the 12th year of it. It brings together socialists who have a great time. There's live music, there's poetry, there's reenactments, there's trade union stalls, there's campaign stalls, whether it's for the NHS. There's all sorts of different political parties that turn up there to, advertise the stuff that that they want to talk about. But the most important factor behind it is the people who are, the creators of it. They're all activists, union representatives, and they've come together to put on this amazing event that just gets stronger and stronger each year. And then on Sunday, I went to Derby. For the Peace Festival. I went to see my mate's band, who's from Musicians Union, called the Bleeding Hearts. If you get an opportunity to see them, go and see them. I recommend them. They're really, really good. I'm not sure how long that event's been going, but it was really good to be in a place where actually they talked about peace, and you didn't get chastised for suggesting that war isn't a very good thing. So yeah, I mean it was a good event, and I believe it's running for the whole week.
Thank you. I mean, these things actually are so important because they give hope at a time when there's precious little of it around. Leanne, since we last aired, she's been elected as Secretary of the Birmingham Strike Solidarity Committee and been invited onto the steering committee for Stand Up to Racism. Another important person, congratulations. We're just so delighted to see that happening there. And Jacqueline Hemmings has moved, and her moment of the week is her move, which was on Facebook, and we were all cheering about it. But it's also about, I hate it. It just makes me look so stupid. Janavi Kandula. Apologies to that person. A young grad student from India who was studying for her master's degree in the US. She was tragically killed by a cop, and leaked footage from another detective showed that detective joking and laughing about the incident and stating that her life had limited value. My God, you have trouble with the Met. Neil, moment of the week.
Oh, yeah. It's rare in our politics these days that we get some absolute comedy gold, but we did yesterday. And if you've not seen the full interview, please go and watch it. It's hilarious. It really is. And it was the Liz Truss interview where she turned around and said that from her time in office, she has no regrets. I completely agree with her. She doesn't. We have the regrets, not her. So, I think she's absolutely spot on with that. It's probably the only thing she's spot on about. And then when she was challenged about crashing the economy, she refuted it and said, "How dare you?" Well, pretty much, "How dare you say that? I didn't crash the economy. All the interest rates, the mortgages went up after I left office." And yet nobody pointed out the fact that, hold on a minute, a lettuce lasted longer in office than what you did. So, it's comedy gold. And actually, what the Morning Star have done an editorial today, I think it's in tomorrow's paper, I think, where they're saying that actually what she has done is plunged the Tories into yet another crisis. because of course people are trying to forget about her. But what all that's done now is reminded her. Everyone's reminded it. And I think the only person who's going to do well out of that is a person we're going to be talking about in a little while, because it only benefits him. It doesn't benefit anyone else, and probably her career as well, whatever she's going to go on to do. But that was my moment of the week, was that interview. And seriously, if you want cheer, in fact, I normally say if you've had a really crap time at work and you've had a bad day, you come in, you think you're not really good at your job. I normally say just remind yourself that Tony Blair was once the UN peace envoy to the Middle East. But now just go and watch that interview instead. It's a lot easier and it's a lot funnier. So
she's definitely making an attempt. She's putting herself about, and some of the things she's saying are just outrageous. I'm glad you find them amusing. I find them.
But the other thing I'll say about Liz Truss, though, is did you know that her mum is a peace activist?
Who was the other one whose parents were embarrassed by her? Was she there's another politician
I'm not sure if they're embarrassed by her, but
yes,
but her mum.
they were socialists, right? Okay, or left wing. Kerry, moment of your week.
Well, mine's a bit of an ironic, a bit of a crazy one. I find it so funny that Jacob Young's now been made the Minister for Levelling Up, and he's my MP in Redcar, isn't he? Obviously, that speaks volumes to me. I mean, he couldn't level up his own backside, never mind round here. Away. So I think that's another grasp at trying to keep him in his seat, which is 99% going to lose come a general election. He will never get re-elected back round here. So
don't you think that all this is just a sign of how absolutely bankrupt of anything like talent the current Tory government is?
Or morals in any way, shape, or form. They've got no morals. We all know that. And Jacob Young, to me, right, and I know I won't swear, John, but he's an absolute little pleb. He was a councillor and he got this position on a paper ballot to be an MP. Now he thinks he's Billy Big Balls, and he's not. He's an absolute pleb. He's done nothing for Redcar in any way, shape, or form.
Before we're straying into libel, we'll move on.
Sorry, I didn't swear.
No.
Right.
But absolutely true. Somebody who's just not good enough for the job.
Can I just say, I love the idea. I love the idea of this politician trying to defend a defamation claim, say he's not a pleb. I think that would be really funny.
Laura.
Now it's time for the big story.
And the big story this week is Starmer. And we mustn't take easy pot shots here, but I do think the man has been in the news so much, it was impossible that we might know that we miss talking about him. Neil, what's he been up to, and what's your take on it?
Well, I think he's been posing for some lovely photographs, don't you think? I mean, look at how beautiful that is. I mean,
I've got a better one. He's got a bigger nose, Neil.
But the thing is, he's coming up to Halloween soon. I'm going to put this on my door. If that doesn't scare kids away, I don't know what will.
It's just so embarrassing.
I mean, I think that speaks volumes of where the Labour Party's going. Does that? That really does. And there's this on the back as well, by the way, of the Daily News saying we liked you before it was trendy.
Can I just interrupt you?
Anyway,
one of the things that's being said on Twitter is that the Labour Party is very is very popular at the moment. The Starmer is not very popular at the moment. -11 at the moment, Starmer. So why, can you explain to me, why is the Labour Party focusing all its campaigning on this kind of Stalin-esque portrayal of Starmer and not pushing the Labour Party side of things? I mean, have you any idea why the people trying to push the Labour Party have decided to focus on their vote loser, not their vote winner?
because they don't see him as a vote loser. I mean, the reality is, Labour are trading on the fact that Labour are not trading on anything that's going to get them elected, anything progressive and good that was going to be good for us. It's all about, I mean, we all know something the Labour Party hasn't cottoned on to. The only reason why Labour are doing well in the polls at the moment is because the Tories are doing so bad. It's not because the Labour are doing so well. And I think you're right. I think the more that people see Starmer, the more people dislike him. I mean, he's the biggest tool going. His dad were a tool maker as well, in case you didn't know. And it's kind of like nobody particularly likes him. In fact, actually, the pictures in it that are put, of him and Rachel Reeves look so posed. They really are. There's no natural kind of no natural photos in there whatsoever. But I don't know. I mean, when you look at what Starmer's doing, there's nothing that gives us any hope for within the Labour Party. I'm not going to go on to talk about, but I mean, when you look at, for example, last week was the TUC conference in Liverpool, and Angela Rayner spoke at it, and most people wish that she didn't. Because she didn't. Her speech was actually lackluster, and that's being generous. Because what's clear is that all of the promises that Labour were making about workers' rights, they've absolutely I was reading Labour list earlier on, and they've used the term watered down. I agree with that term, but they've watered it down with water from the local river, and we know what that's full of as well. So they dilute themselves in that. I mean, for example, statutory sick pay was something that the Labour Party went massively on during the pandemic, to make it so that every worker can have access to it, which at the moment they can't. People on the lowest incomes, the lowest earners, don't earn enough to qualify for it. And you also have to wait 3 days currently, whereas the government would talk about removing that and also massively upping it as well, so that people can afford to take sick leave, so they're not spreading viruses and illness in the workplace. And we've got to remember the Health Safety at Work Act gives, within the Health Safety at Work Act, employees have a duty to protect their own and their colleagues' health and well-being as well. So if you're going in knowing you've got a flu, then you could fall foul of that legislation. But yet, so we're not dealing with that. All that they're now talking about is removing the 3-day wait that you have to have, as you can claim it from day one. So what they're doing is tinkering around the edges with things. They're not dealing with anything. And there's something more important than that as well, and that is that there is the latest policy document that we're talking about here from Labour of employment rights does not mention anything whatsoever about repealing the Strikes Minimum Services Act or the Trade Union Act 2016. And everyone who was at the TUC conference last week needs to pay attention to that, because Paul Nowak said very clearly, we need to vote Labour to get Labour in so that they will repeal this legislation. And he keeps saying that over and over. And and we need to listen to that very carefully. If they're not going to pledge that, then quite frankly, in my opinion, the TUC shouldn't be saying anyway. But in addition to that as well as workers' rights, is also Matt Rack, I think, got this one right when speaking about the immigration plans that he's got, where Starmer wants to treat the people smuggler gangs, people as terrorists. And Matt Rack, the General Secretary of the Fire Brigades Union, has said, well, actually, all that's going to do is dial up the far-right rhetoric that the Tories are doing. And I think he's spot on with that. And, when that announcement was made, my comment to it was, great, well, good idea, but how many have we caught in the last, say, 10 years? We don't seem to catch many of them. So, making it much more serious offence. And besides, even if they are a terrorist, maybe they could escape prison and go and carry on doing what they're doing. So, the problem is that the Labour Party are not offering anything that's actually substantial to, we've got absolute systematic collapse happening in this country. as a result of 12 years of austerity, and yet we're not seeing any change. What we're seeing is, oh, that, you know, I can see that screw needs fixing there. Well, let's do that, without realizing the cabinet's fallen down around it. No pun intended. So I don't know where we're heading with Starmer, and I don't know what he's doing, but it's I dread to think.
Thank
You know,
you.
but my final comment is this, and I keep saying this every time I'm on. You know, what this evidences more than anything else is that we need systematic change. You know, we've got a political system that doesn't work in our favour whatsoever, and this is proving that 100%. You know,
Thank you,
so,
Neil.
so there's no point in voting for a Labour Party that's going to continue what the
You're gonna have to
Tories
stop,
do.
Neil. I'm sorry, I'm moving on. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Ian, in a little while, I'm going to come to you, and you're going to lead on the topic of where people who are leaving Labour might actually end up and where they go. But in the meantime, sort of, is there anything in what Starmer is doing that you can find anything positive to talk about? That's my question to you. I mean, he's definitely got a plan of campaign. He's going about it. Is there anything positive to say about what Starmer's achieving or attempting to achieve at the moment?
No. I mean, the reality is the only positive thing is it's not the Tory party. But I mean, that's no reason to vote for Labour, is it? I mean, you know, if you're gonna take part in democracy, then you know you want to vote for something you believe in, not something that isn't, you know, the other lot. You know, I mean, you know, Neil's just pointed out quite a number of things around what Starmer's done. I think they're calling the 180-degree man now. I mean, it could be 360-degree by tomorrow because they changed his mind again. But no doubt he won't reinstate his pledges. I'm just at a loss to understand why someone who's in the position that he finds himself in with the Tory party, absolutely tearing itself apart with an opportunity to put forward a progressive programme based around the principles that the Labour Party was founded on, to support working people, to rebuild our communities, and to deliver, you know, a society that's fair and just. He doesn't want to do it. He just wants to maintain the status quo because I think it's because he's afraid of the media. He's afraid of the Daily Mail. He's afraid of Rupert Murdoch, you know, and he's afraid to be bold. So unfortunately, you know, no, I've seen nothing.
I mean, there's the Stop Starmer campaign, which has kicked off now. I mean, is it worthwhile joining something like that? I mean, is it not just the case that something that the only thing that's going to manage to achieve is to actually end up with more Tories in Parliament?
I mean,
it's not an argument.
I mean, I've you know, I mean, obviously, I have an understanding of why people want to do that. They're hurting from what those politicians did to Jeremy Corbyn, and I understand that they want to get their own back. And unfortunately, I think that's how that will be perceived. I think there is a genuine feeling and a genuine fear of what Starmer will be like if he ever becomes Prime Minister. And I think, you know, we should be afraid. You know, this is a man that's prescribed people, you know, and backdated it, you know, which is illegal. You know, and he was the head man of the, you know, the Department of Justice and, you know, the DPP. And yet here he is, this human rights lawyer that had books wrote after him, and he wrote the book, you know, prescribing people for stuff that they haven't even done and accusing them and smearing them. My opinion is that, you know, I understand people's frustrations, but I think there's better ways for us to come together. And that's to be a positive message about the change that we offer, about the change that we need, the changes that we want. And I think that's more important, because I believe we need to talk about what the alternative actually does look like, because at this moment, no opportunity to express that.
Thank you so much, and we'll do that in a very short moment. I've just got one last question for you before I move on to Kerry. I mean, as I see it, basically, what Starmer's come to the conclusion is that he needs to capture, what do they call them? Switchers, Tory switchers. And sort of, if Labour's going to win the election, he has decided that we need to persuade a whole load of Tories to vote Labour for the first time. And sort of the consequence of that is that he's just, to me, it seems he's just peddling a whole load of policies which are an absolute anathema to his own membership. And even mild Labour, centrist Labours are finding it difficult to swallow. But sort of we're peddling these these sort of middle of the road Tory policies almost wholly. Now, just one last question to you: is that going to work?
Well, I think Ed Miliband tried that approach in 2015 and he lost Scotland. I mean, so I'm not convinced that the Labour Party has won this next election. I'm not convinced of that at all. I know everybody says, because the polls say, but when you actually see people actually go out to the polling stations, that's not what's happening at all. In fact, the Labour Party is losing its vote share. I mean, look at Liverpool. I mean, it's. I think the Labour Party's got massive problems. And, the one thing that Tony Blair understood was he needed to keep Labour voters on side while he chased the Tory voters. That's why he was only minimalistic in his attacks on the left until he got into power. Starmer, so, I mean, I just don't understand his politics, other than he's obviously surrounded by a cult that believes it now has the opportunity to control and own a political organization, and it is a cult, and that's why his picture's on there like it is. I mean, and it's not showing people, because the Labour Party was always about people, not about an individual.
Thank you. Jacqueline Hemming: Starmer strikes me as too petty and vindictive to be a good leader, even if I did agree with his policies. And you're right, Jacqueline, there's an issue about the man and his character, as well as the policies that he's peddling. Kerry, it's highly likely. I share Ian's doubts about whether Starmer's strategy will win, because Ian, what I think at the end of the day, he's going after these Tory voters, putting his eggs in that basket. At the end of the day, I guess that many of them will go down the Tory line after all. And in the meantime, he's alienated his membership. It's a very dangerous policy. But I think if he wins, Kerry, will you be happy, despondent, and how happy or how despondent will you be if he becomes our next Prime Minister?
I don't think he will. I think he's got a short memory. He was part of the Brexit team when it come to the second vote and everything like that, and they lost so many red wall seats, such as mine, and people where I'm from have not got short memories, and I don't think he's got, to be honest, I don't think he's got a chance. I mean, to be fair, right, you get any Labour politician now, shadow secretary of, the only one I will give her due to is Bridget Phillipson about the shadow education secretary, but you get other ones who are like, even I think seeing Emily Thornby the other day, blah, 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 didn't know what to say. The Labour Party currently have got no policies, and they're riding currently on the Tories, thing going on in society and stuff. And to be fair,
talk about
he
Starmer.
isn't for me.
How far is Starmer to blame for that?
I think he's a big hypocrite. I genuinely think he is a big hypocrite. He was Jeremy Corbyn's really good friend. He was I remember posting things on social media. Who would you rather have in the Brexit negotiations with? Keir Starmer or whoever was doing it at the time for the Tory party? Keir Starmer's out for himself. It's a diluted version of the Tory party. And
one last thing, Kerry, thank you for letting me interrupt you, God bless you. But we are running out of time on this topic. I mean, he has made a big play about Brexit at the moment, hasn't he? He's going to fix Brexit. I mean, talk to me about that.
I mean, I think my facial expressions say all. I think where I live in Redcar, right, people voted nearly 68% to leave the EU, regardless of whether it was wrong or right or everything like that. And I think that they're taking the red wall voters who voted for them for donkey's years, such as me, for granted yet again. And they're trying to appeal to these people who maybe didn't vote Labour previously or these swing votes things, but they're absolutely annihilating the red wall voters yet again. They're treating them like mugs.
Thank you so much, Kerry. Neil, you have a minute to sum up what we've been talking about. A minute, Neil.
Yeah, how do I sum that up? I'm going to call the election now in terms of the result. I think it's going to be a hung parliament with a coalition between the Tories and Labour, just so you don't see any difference whatsoever. And I hope that's a joke. I hope it is, but I'm not sure. But basically, to sum it up, Starmer's not really doing well, despite him thinking that he is. I mean, imagine being around about a year from a general election and being in opposition and being a Labour leader and getting the name of Sir Kid Starmer.
Thank you so much.
He's got as much appeal as a brick wall.
And
can we point out what Ruth Davidson said?
No, Ian, no, you did so, Neil, you did so much, you did so well. Shush. Okay, let's move back to the story.
Sorry.
I know the story like the back of my hand, 'cause I've heard it all before.
You'll notice, Ian, that one of the themes of Political Unmuted is me desperately trying to control my guests and failing miserably.
Loving it.
All those years as a teacher come to nothing when faced with
Ian
Kerry.
knows me anyway, Sam.
Ian, question. Is there life after Labour? So it's one of the things that people say who aren't leaving Labour, one of the things they will say is that there's nowhere else to go, or if there is somewhere else to go, then it's not going to get anybody elected, that it's a two-horse race in the election, and so you're basically just wasting your political efforts. Is there no alternative?
I mean, listen, being outside of the Labour Party to me, I feel a lot better about the idea of being outside the Labour Party. This Labour Party doesn't represent my interests, my class interests, my community. It doesn't represent, the trade union movement, which obviously I'm part of. It's got absolutely no interest in the issues that will make the lives of people better in this country. It's not the party of Nye Bevan. It's not even the party of Clem Attlee. I mean, I adore those politicians, and these politicians today, unfortunately, don't even, couldn't even fasten their shoelaces. I mean, that's the reality of where we are with our political politicians at the moment. I mean, one thing that politicians have successfully done is increased their living standards, increased the opportunities for them and their families to have good lives, while at the same time, smashing our communities, smashing our infrastructure, attacking our rights. They talk about freedom. You've got freedom until you say, actually, I'd like a pay rise. And then they go, actually, if you're going to go on strike, then what we're going to do is we're going to sack you. That's the state of our politics today. And where is the Labour Party coming out and saying, we're going to join the trade union movement and organise, with the trade union movement and the medical staff to actually resist this absolutely dire act, by politicians who call for freedom. I mean, it's not freedom when you stop people from being able to take industrial action. The difference between a worker and a slave is the right to withdraw your labour. If you haven't got the right to withdraw your labour, then you're no longer a worker. I don't know whether government and politicians have difficulty in explaining what a worker is, but even more so under these horrific laws that they intend to bring in. But, there's so many people in our communities that are desperate for change. But our opportunity has been taken away from us to have that debate, because if you try and raise it in the Labour Party, you're kicked out, you're excluded, you're smeared. So how do we talk about the renationalisation of our energy, of our steel industry? How do we talk about, if we're going to make Brexit work, one of the things that we need to do is invest in manufacturing. We need to start making things again. I mean, it's great that, these companies from foreign countries want to invest and make, put some factories here and there. But where is the British motor car industry? We used to have one. Where is the recognition that if you're going to go rebuild houses, or rebuild roads, that we need British steel to do it and compel people to use British steel. We could do lots of things to reinvest and get our country back on the road to a decent recovery, instead of one that's just waiting for the investment from foreign bankers. We're seeing now the majority of jobs are in hospitality, not in long-term secure employment positions, mostly in low-paid insecure jobs. So we need to be able to talk about those issues.
Yes.
And we need to come together as a people to do that. So we need to create a platform for that to happen. I mean, obviously, I know we've got an event that's planned on the 9th of October in Liverpool to coincide with the Labour conference, which obviously I've been working on with Ken, which is going to be around 12 principles, and the idea of setting up hubs across the country to talk about the things that would make our lives so much better. The reinvestment into a green economy that actually works. I mean, I once wrote a paper, which to me was a bit strange at the time. I was asked by Andrew Fisher about, the energy industry and what we could do to make lives better. And I did some investigation, I did some research, and I put this paper together and basically came up with the idea that we build all houses that are self-sufficient in generating their own energy. And then I found out they're actually doing it in places like Germany and across Europe and in other parts of the world. We could actually build houses now, that generate their own energy and actually sell the excess to industry. And actually that reduces our bills. But of course, we don't talk about that because we're more interested in getting as much money into the portfolio of the Prime Minister's family, by them getting more licenses for gas and oil. So where is our opportunity to talk? We have to create that opportunity. And the only way we're going to do it is by coming together as activists, as campaigners, trade unionists, non-trade unionists, and work together to talk about our priorities. One of the things that we want to do is hold street stalls. We want to talk to people on the street and ask them if politics is working for them, because I don't think many people would say that politics does work for them. What are the people's priorities? We're told that the government got elected to deal with the small boat issue. Well, I'm not being funny. We didn't have a small boat issue in 2019 because we still had the agreement in place with the European Union. There was no small boat issue. This is a Tory created issue. And for me, what does it matter? If somebody's seeking asylum and being given a decent place to live while their claims being processed to see whether or not they meet the criteria. I mean, I believe that the only thing that's happening in our politics now is the politics of hate and division, and it's being caused and created deliberately. So we can say in some parts of the community, oh, well, at least I'm not them, or look at them over there. They're those types of politics are not the politics that are going to make our children's lives better, provide decent homes. They're not gonna be able to deliver, a future where their lives get better than the ones we're living through. And so we need to talk about that. We need to talk about those issues. And outside of the Labour Party is the only place to do it. Supporting the Labour Party in the election is not going to change.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I could have listened to you for another half hour. But I do want to draw some things. Laura Daly says that your 12 Principles event is going to be absolutely such a positive effect. It sounds fantastic. Can you briefly tell us what the 12 Principles are?
There's too many for me to remember. There's renationalisation, a green economy, return to trade union rights, education, bread and roses, investment in the arts, building council houses, reinvestment and renationalisation of the NHS, taking back into ownership, all of those industries that actually were ours, that we invested in, that we built, and then we've sold off. And obviously, because we can't have nationalised industries, because governments can't run them. Well, the British government can't run them, but every other government seems to be able to. And that's that they run ours. There's quite a number of these principles, and a justice system that everybody can access. I mean, basic right to justice. The right for us all to be able to get access to know what our rights are, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's in our community, whether it's to protect us against landlords that are trying to bully us out or make us make our lives difficult. That access to justice is no longer available to people. So let's talk about how do we build a justice system that's fair, that gives people an opportunity to access it. Well, what about not just talking about investment in manufacturing of arms, but creating peace? What's wrong with discussing the idea that we keep talking about that this war is going to be the war that ends all wars, and then the next one is the war that ends all wars, and now we have the war that's obviously going on, which is in Ukraine and Russia. But you can't say Russians out of Ukraine and NATO out of Ukraine. You can't say that because that's unpatriotic, and it makes you a traitor. And I've got to say, for me, I think that the Russians have no right to be in Ukraine, and neither does anybody else. It's not a war zone for people to play war games in. The people in Ukraine are entitled to peace, and they don't need more weapons. They need people to come up with a solution that saves lives. And I think, we need to be able to have those discussions openly, freely, without being smeared as an anti-patriot or, somebody who's, a traitor to the country.
So just finally, Ian, I usually have such a rotter when I stop people in full.
I appreciate it. Keep going on.
Just finally, let's say one of our listeners is in Labour. They agree with every damn word you've said, and they're going to leave Labour. Where do they go? And what's the point? What would you advise them to do? Is there any of these? I mean, I've got a whole load of little ones here. Liverpool Community Independence, Social Justice Party, Socialist Workers Party, Greens, a lot of people sort of say, so Transform, People's Alliance of the Left. There's a whole load of them to go to. Or do they stay out of it and get involved in things like Just Stop Oil and Surface Against Sewage and things like that? Do they just go to rallies and vote for independence, which I think Transform are going to do? What do you do when you leave the party that actually will get MPs elected?
Well, I mean, it all depends whether you believe that you can change things in Westminster. I used to believe you could change things in Westminster. I've now become a realist and recognise you have to change it outside of Westminster. Politicians will only change things when people come together and force them to do it. And so I believe that, our time spent in building up our aims, our objectives, working together to put the pressure on those MPs to change their minds and change their opinions and pass the legislation that makes our lives better is how we do it. I mean, I adore some of the people who are standing in these other parties. I congratulate people who've stood as independents, and obviously Jamie Driscoll. I wish him nothing but the best. With Joe Bird, who's going to stand in Liverpool, who's a Bakers Union member as well. Obviously, we'll be 100% behind her. But I mean, I wouldn't say to people leave the Labour Party. I wouldn't say that to people because that's not my right to do so. I think my right to tell people what to do. If I can lead somebody into the desert, then somebody can lead them out of it. It's their belief that's important. It's what they believe in that should determine what they do. But I would say that arguing how we improve, the lives of ourselves, our families, and everybody else in our community is an absolutely critical task, whether you're inside or outside a political party. And we should never be afraid to raise the issues that improve people's lives, even if we don't necessarily agree. But the most important thing is we have an open debate and we can be honest with each other.
Thank you. I can't remember who said it. It's Laura. Trade unions, community groups, left wing coming together, stop getting caught up on silly disagreements. Fight book should be easy. I've never heard people talk sense like you, Ian, about this. Absolutely. It doesn't matter whether you're in Labour or out Labour. What you need to do is you need to be changing society. And my God, your 12 principles are something to get behind. I'm just going to go quickly to my two other guests, my two other wonderful friends. Kerry, what will you be voting at the next election and why? You're not in Labour. Where will your vote be going?
You know what? I genuinely just don't know. I'm red through and through. It's in my veins, the Labour Party. But how on earth can I vote for my MP to be Anna Turley again? How on earth can I do that? I cannot do that. My own moral conscience, I cannot do that. She's acting like Mother Teresa now. She didn't give a hoot about universal credit or things affecting her constituents when she was the MP, but now she's volunteering in food banks because she wants to be the MP again. And I genuinely think at this current moment in time, I'd have to go and ruin my ballot. I wouldn't waste my vote. I would have to go and ruin my ballot. And that makes me bad. That makes me ill.
I did.
I would have to go and ruin my ballot.
You reach the point where there's nobody fit to vote for, and
No?
you actually it was Billy Connolly who said when we reach the point where the number of spoilt ballot papers win the election.
And the thing, that's another thing going back to Keith, as I call him. That's another thing going back to Keith. He thinks he's got a open goal in Redcar. I mean, I'm Labour through and through. I'm like the National Chair United Community. I'm proper Labour. And if the likes of me can't vote Labour, imagine other people around in my area who are not going to vote Labour.
God bless you, Kerry. Thank you so much for that comment. Neil, same question to you. I know you're not in Labour. What are you going to do come election day?
Probably join a picket line somewhere rather than go and vote. I mean, it's come to the point where when I speak to people and say, "Well, I don't vote," I've actually got to the point of saying, "Actually, I don't really blame you anymore." You know, for a long time, it's certainly when we had Jeremy Corbyn as leader of our Labour Party, not Starmer's Labour Party, our Labour Party. You know, it would be very easy to say, well, actually, there is a difference between politicians, and these are the differences. But now it's like, well, you know, I can't really, you know, one's a bucket full of brown stuff, and another's bucket full of brown stuff. I can't tell you which one's which.
Just a
But they
different
both stink.
shade.
So therefore, I'm not honestly don't know who I would vote for the next general election. I'm hoping that someone like Tusk or someone like that puts someone up in my constituency, and I'll happily vote for them. I'd rather do that than support my ballot personally, but equally, as I said at the beginning, we have a political system that doesn't work for us, and we need systemic change.
Yeah.
You know, and as Ian said brilliantly, you know that we need something to vote for. It's not enough to vote against something. We don't need something to vote for.
Thank you, Neil. God bless you. And Kerry, no, sorry, we're down to 10 minutes for our last question.
Oh, sorry, I was going to make a big point for people in my area and many people's area across the country.
Go on then.
Oh, thanks, John. How can people, the likes of me, who's a carer on universal credit, living the Tory policies, which many people are now, even the middle classes, like vote for Keir Starmer? What's the alternative? Currently, there isn't one, is there?
Our last question, and I'm going to go back to Kerry. By the way, thank you for your comments on that. They were really the best comments I've heard for a long time on that topic. God bless you, thank you. But our last topic is about the issue that's been in the news recently about the Bully XL dogs who killed that poor chap, and the suggestion that the answer is to ban the breed. Kerry, Should Bully XL dogs be banned?
No, I think bad owners should be banned. I think dog licenses, when it comes to dogs like that, should be put in place. I mean, I know, well, I don't personally know, but I've heard of a Jack Russell savaging a child and stuff like that. And my next door neighbour's got an XL bully, and it's a stupid. Honestly, it's docile. It's stupid. I think it's bad owners, not. I think it's bad owners, or you get like, especially where I'm from a rough part, as everyone knows, who buy these XL bully dogs. You like to think the big hard knocks and everything, a dog on a lead, protection and all that. It's not the dog, it's the owner. I mean, I've got a. I mean, you've seen my dog on here a couple of times, to be honest. It's probably been licking my face, but I could have that dog aggressive. Any dog can become aggressive if it's trained that way. Any dog, and it's always the excuse of the dog. It's never the owner. And I think it's horrible what's happened to that child. It's horrible what's happened to anybody who's been assaulted by, like, hurt by a dog. But you could get a chihuahua who would rip your face off. And I think that it's currently.
So how are you going to deal with this, Kay? How are you
I
going
think that
to
when it
address
comes
the
to,
owner?
I think that XL bullies and other breeds, like them ones with the big noses, have always been deemed as dangerous dogs. If they're deemed as dangerous dogs, people should have a license for them to say that they can handle that dog. Like it was like the pit bull terriers and stuff like that, and they're the most placid dogs, but it's the ownership of them. Anyone could get a dog in their hands, even a Labrador. Anyone could get a dog in their hands, and if they were trained to attack people, they're going to attack anybody. So I think if you're going to get a dangerous, I don't think they should be banned. But if it comes to the point where we're a dangerous breed and they've attacked people, which they obviously have, and I'm not defending what a dog's done, I think that if it's a dangerous breed of dog, they should have a license to say that they can handle that dog.
Thank you. Neil, what are your comments on this? Deed or breed?
I don't know enough about this, if I'm brutally honest with you. I think the one thing the one thing that always gets overlooked in this is that, you know, some dogs are more prone to be more dangerous, and reality is every dog has its own personality as well. So therefore can become dangerous in the right environment. You can have the most responsible breeder, the most responsible owner of a dog, and an unfortunate set of circumstances, and then all of a sudden, you know, the dog could then turn and, you know, potentially kill someone. They are animals after all. Whilst most of them are domesticated, they are still animals. But I mean, I don't quite know, but there's some breeds that I honestly couldn't imagine. But then there's some dogs that I couldn't imagine. I know quite a few dogs that, you know, I mean, I was with a friend last week who's got a puppy that was at first didn't know how to take me and came across quite aggressive at first. And he wasn't being aggressive. He just didn't know. He just didn't really know how to take me. But then an hour later, we were best of friends. But the point I'll make is this: we're talking about banning a breed of dog because there's been around the independent report has been around about 14 deaths linked to this breed of dog. But yeah, do you know what? Over the past 12 years, hundreds of thousands of people have died as a direct result of austerity. Where are we talking about banning that? You know, if it's going to come down to being about lives and what's dangerous, do you know what? I'd far rather take my chances with a dog than I would with a Tory. And I'm less likely to catch something as well.
Just very
Well said, Neil.
Very briefly, bringing you back to the issue of dogs. I mean, sort of, you say that some breeds. I mean, some of these XL bullies, they can reach 9 stone. Now, I'm only 11 stone. I mean, if I was to be attacked by a 9 stone dog, I'd be in severe danger, and it only needed one of them. I mean, what do you think of Kerry's idea that sort of before you're allowed to own certain dogs, that you have to show that you're fit to. I mean, in Spain, you've got to go to training classes and get certificates and all kinds of things before you can own certain breeds of dog. I mean, when you're dealing with something that's as dangerous as a gun, should that not be the case?
Who was that too?
Is that too?
Sorry, I was
It used to
asking
be
you,
the
Neil. I was asking,
Rottweiler, it
sorry, I was
used to be
asking Neil.
every
I'll come
dog.
to you in a moment, Ian. So, Neil, what were you thinking of? I mean, is that not the case? Oh, we've lost Neil. Oh, I'm
Hello?
doing so well.
Sorry.
I'll ask you, Ian. So
I think there's some merit in that.
Oh, here it
I
comes.
mean, there
He's
is a
back.
dangerous animal. There is a dangerous animals license. For example, if you have a reptile, for example, such as, for example, if you wanted to have a crocodile as a pet, for argument's sake, which isn't the lapdog of many people, but I'd love one personally. But you have to have a license for that. In the same way, so I think there's some merit in it, but then how would it be? The problem is, it then goes back to creating all these other legislations for all other things. How would it be enforced? You know, where's the resources for it to be enforced? So you can bring all the licenses you want, but the fact is, people that want to get hold of something that is dangerous and is likely to kill someone, you know, is still going to do it. And let's not forget, they train police dogs to attack people, and yet no one's talking about banning them. You know what I mean? And yet, what do they do when they retire? They become pets to those police officers. So you know, so I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's such a nuanced thing. When there's many elements that people never ever talk about. Animals are okay to attack people in the right circumstance. You know, usually when there's a police officer shouting at you, is normally when it's okay. But any other circumstance, it isn't. And you know, I think we need a much wider debate where we're not talking about it in the context of someone's just been killed by one. It needs to be a rational debate that we have, a rational conversation, rather than it being led by emotion, because a child has just been killed by one of these dogs just down the road or something like that.
Thank you, Neil. That was really a good contribution. And I mean, it reminds me that people want their dog to attack a burglar who comes into the house. I mean, sort of, it's one of the jokes that my dog's too soft to do this. Ian,
It'd be me with me rolling pin, not my dog in my house, John. I'd have me rolling pin, my dog would be shrinking Violet and that under the bed, and it'd be me with me rolling pin.
Trying to lick his face off. Ian, what's your solution to it all?
I mean, we've got a dangerous dog act, haven't we? I mean, it's been in place for 30 years and it's clearly not worked. I think the problem is politicians never have the answer. They just have the opportunity to have some sound bites,
Yeah.
and to get on a platform to say that they're going to do something and then do something because obviously it's popular at that moment in time. I mean, I prefer to listen to people who spend their lives dealing with dogs. You know, the RSPCA and organisations like that, and I'd rather them come out with the advice and guidance about what we should do. I'm sure they would be talking about the breeders. I'm sure they'd be talking about making sure, like Terry was talking about, or yourself, John, was talking about making sure people were trained to look after these types of dogs.
Neil.
Oh, Kerry.
Sorry, Neil. Neil, I don't know why.
Oh, I thought you were calling me Terry there.
No, sorry. Sorry, Neil.
Don't worry about it, Ronnie. Don't worry about it, Ronnie. It's okay.
That's all right, mate. That's all right. But yeah, no, I think Neil, you know, that to me is the answer. Is get the experts who deal with it and not politicians who are just looking for a soundbite and a bit of populism.
I think the other thing I would like to say is when you look at the round, dogs have much more to worry about and suffer much more from being mistreated by owners than humans ever have with dogs treating them badly.
Horrible.
There's some dreadful things out there. And that brings us to an end. I have some apologies to make. First of all, to our listeners, the quality of your comments, and they were just coming so thick and fast, and I just never got them into the show. And mainly because we've had a few good rants today, haven't we? Everyone listening to it just loved it today.
You said I didn't swear, John.
Just no, it was really good. Yes, because I'm still time to spoil it, Kate. Just one last thing.
I think Ruth's comment is worthy of note. Talking about Keir Starmer, where he said she said, I haven't got the quote in front of me, but I think she said something along the lines of, you could give him an enema and it'd still fit within a matchbox.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
Wait for anybody.
Well, I used to give enemas.
The Labour Party's statements make me feel ill very often. Right.
Ian, you know
One
me.
last thing, if I can just finish. Somebody said that, am I all right? I'm not looking very well. So that I just look 70. That's the only problem.
You look knackered, John, to be fair. I'll be blunt with you. You look knackered.
Fitter than I've ever been. So
But you're living in the countryside now, so it's all that countryside there, isn't it?
You're just looking at the slow decline into senility happening in front of your eyes.
What's my excuse? I'm still in the same place.
And there I'm going to get Carrie, you're young and beautiful. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Young? Oh, wait, John.
Thank you to my guests. Thank you to Kerry. Thank you to Neil, who's trying to sell his calendar. Buy it. I've bought it. And Ian, please come on again. I mean, you were just fantastic. We've been deeply honoured.
It's a pleasure to come along, and obviously wish all the best to Laura.
Well, Paul's Polly as well, and things like that. So, if there is somebody to start playing the music, watch us next week. We'll be here on for a season of shows. Goodbye and God bless. Thank you very much indeed.
Keep the red flag flying here.